Hamas is not obliterated, the hostages are still there, and Keir Starmer is leading the charge to give them a recognition of a state.
I didn't interrupt you with your lies, so just let me finish.
It's not experienced to have a lawyer look me in the eye on live television and falsely accuse me of lying.
Jake, the game is up, the jig is up for Israel and their supporters, and I understand that it's very frustrating.
Jake, let's start with you. Tell me straight, have we just sold out the remaining hostages?
I think we have. There's no two ways about it. I mean, Keir Starmer can claim for all he likes that this is not a reward for Hamas, but you look at Hamas, they're celebrating. They're congratulating Keir Starmer for this move. For them, Christmas has come early, although they don't believe in Christmas, but you know what I mean. It's everything they would have wanted. And, you know, crucially, this recognition did not place any demands on Hamas or the Palestinians to do anything. It didn't require Hamas to release the hostages. It didn't require Hamas to lay down its arms. And let's not forget how this war began in the first place. You know, to listen to Keir Starmer and the UN and all the other diplomats, you'd have thought that Israel just started massacring Palestinians without cause, and there isn't another combatant in this fight. We both know, and all the audience knows as well, the viewers know at home, how this started was with October the 7th, leaving Israel no choice but to obliterate Hamas and try to get its hostages back. Hamas is not obliterated. The hostages are still there, and Keir Starmer is leading the charge to give them a recognition of a state.
Amer, can I ask you, what incentive possibly does Hamas have now to release the remaining hostages? They've got what they want, haven't they?
Well, it's hard to have this conversation because the truth is the PLO, or the Palestinian Authority, or the Palestinians that actually are the ones negotiating with the countries like Britain and France and Australia for recognition, are not Hamas. They are Fatah. They are the ones who are in power in Ramallah. In fact, in many ways, it's their point of view that this recognition with this group of Palestinians, the ones that lead the PA and lead the PLO, is a way to make sure that Palestinian self-determination and power stays with them. So it's the UK and France and Australia, when they are granting the recognition, they're granting it to a party that actually opposes Hamas. So it's important to understand the basics of Palestinian politics when you're discussing this, which so far the discourse is not doing that.
Well, let's get into that, because is it your view then that there cannot be a recognised Palestine functioning state with a role for Hamas then?
Well, that's up to Palestinians, but we already know that the majority of Palestinians don't vote for Hamas. They vote for Fatah and other parties, but that's not really the point. The point is Palestinians. No, it's not. Palestinian self-determination is not up to the West. It's not up to Israel. We have a right of self-determination just like anybody else in the world. And that's what these recognitions say, that Palestinians have a right of self-determination. And it's important that we recognize that our self-determination is not conditional upon anything. It's not conditional upon anyone's comfort. It's because we are human beings and we are a people. And that's what the world has discovered. I'm sorry that a lot of people don't like it, that the world has seen the truth of Israeli occupation and apartheid and genocide, which started way before October 7th. I'm sorry that people don't like that. I'm sorry that people don't understand that what happened on October 7th was what happened with Nat Turner in the 1830s in America. It's a product of a terrible situation in apartheid and genocide that's been going on for forever. And so what the world is saying now, or actually most of the world already recognizes Palestine, but what the major countries of Europe are saying now is that we understand that Palestinian self-determination is a fact. It's not something conditional upon anything else. Why are we the only people in the world that have to behave for our rights? Well, guess what? When people don't have their rights, they don't behave. So it's important to treat people like human beings.
I think the murder of 1,700 people is a little bit more than not behaving. Jake, you're shaking your head there.
Yeah, I mean, that sounded very much like an apology for October the 7th from where I'm sitting. You know, October the 7th was not a response to Israel occupation because Gaza was not occupied since 2005. Israel withdrew unilaterally and gave the keys back to the Palestinians. Let's look at some basic history. You talk about the Palestinian appetite for Hamas or otherwise. The last time there was an election in the Palestinian territories in the early 2000s, guess what? Hamas won. After that, the world did not allow Hamas to take its place as the ruling body of Palestine, quite rightly. Then there was a civil war in Gaza, and Hamas kicked out the Palestinian Authority, which had been governing it before then, and took over. And look, almost 20 years later, Hamas had turned it into a terrorist enclave that then rewarded Israeli withdrawal from that territory with rockets, with the massacres, mutilations, rapes, and kidnaps of October the 7th, and with continual bombing and belligerence. So I just don't recognise this idea that somehow the Palestinians can be free to determine their own future when they elect Hamas, and Hamas then does October the 7th just a few short years later. The fact is that nobody deserves statehood and self-determination. According to the Montevideo Convention, there are 4 criteria for statehood. Every other state in the world has passed those criteria before being recognized as a state. Palestine is the only one that has not passed any of those 4 criteria for recognition. It is still being recognized in advance of that as a protest, or rather as a stick with which to beat Israel as it tries to defend itself against the murderous killers of October the 7th. This is upside down. This is upside down politics. This is a topsy-turvy morality, and it's a crying shame that Keir Starmer is playing such a leading role in this atrocity.
Amer, what did you say to that?
So a couple lies there. First of all, the criteria for international recognition is whether other states recognize you. That's clear. You don't have to behave.
Have you heard of the Montevideo
other
Convention?
States. I didn't interrupt you with your lies, so just let me finish. All that matters matters under international law, and I'm a lawyer and a legal and a law professor, is that other states recognize you.
Then you shouldn't accuse people of lying on television.
That's all that matters. Number 2 is Gaza, of course, has been occupied since 1967. Yes, the Israelis physically withdrew their people and their settlements in 2005. However, they still controlled every border, all the imports, all the exports, the water, the bandwidth, the electricity. Why do you think they were able to turn off the water the next day and turn off the electricity and brag about it right after October 7th? Because they control that stuff. Palestinians who lived in Gaza were still living with 2G on their phones while the settlement next door is living on 5G. Why? Because Israel controls all of that. The Palestinians who live in the West Bank live with 3G. Why? Because Israel controls all of that. Jake knows all of this, I think, but these are the lines that we've been hearing from pro-Israel people to sanitize what Israel has done since 1948 and since 1967 especially. Occupation is ugly. I get it. I wouldn't want to try to defend it either. It is very ugly and it's very violent. We see settlers committing pogroms on Palestinian villages every day. I go to Palestine all the time. There are literally roads that are only for settlers and sometimes open for Palestinians if they want to use it. Otherwise, a 15-minute drive turns into 2 hours for Palestinians. We have a name for that. It's called Jim Crow. It's called apartheid. It's been going on for forever. Now the whole world sees it, and I understand supporters of Israel are getting really uneasy with it, that everyone's questioning from all parts of the spectrum. But it's quite clear. We live in America, and we seem to be more concerned, our political leaders seem to be more concerned with Israel than we are in America. Flint still doesn't have clean water. We don't have health care. People die because they're poor, and we're funding Israel. Jake, the game is up. The jig is up for Israel and their supporters, and I understand that it's very frustrating.
Jake, you'll come back to that. Some allegations there you want to pick up?
Yeah, it's quite odd and odd experience to have a lawyer look me in the eye on live television and falsely accuse me of lying. That would suggest that you're not too au fait with the libel laws in this country, at least. But either way, you criticise me for defending Israel when you seem quite happy to defend Hamas's actions on October the 7th, or at least to explain them away by some Israeli evil. If Gaza wanted 3G rather than 2G, or even 4G or 5G, quite simple. When Israel pulled out and gave them the businesses, gave them the keys to the Strip, they could have simply developed it in a peaceful way, in a way that makes economic sense, looks after their citizens, provided welfare, provided all the infrastructure of the state. Then you would have open borders, peace between Israel and the Palestinians in Gaza, and it would be a lovely place that you and I could go together and have coffee by the beach, these days. Unfortunately, they chose the path of terror. Hamas took billions of aid dollars and used it not to care for its citizens, but to build the infrastructure of terror, hundreds of miles of terror tunnels under Gaza, in which not a single civilian is allowed. All the civilians in Gaza could, by the way, fit in those tunnels during a bombardment and be safe, but they're not allowed in there because they're only used to attack Israel and to hold hostages. Hamas turned the place into a terror playground and then used it to launch an attempted genocide on Israel on October the 7th. You can't blame Israel for that.
I mean, just broadening it out slightly on the practicalities of how this is actually going to work. Jake does have a point though on the defined territory of the state, the permanent population, the capacity to enter diplomatic relations, and a functioning government. You know, leaving aside Gaza, in the West Bank, I don't think you can argue that there are any of those things, really.
Well, that's not true. In the West Bank, you have the Palestinian Authority. But let's also understand, when Israel declared statehood in May of 1948, after they ethnically cleansed 850,000 Palestinians, including my parents, we are real people. This did actually happen to us. They didn't have any borders at that time. They hadn't had elections yet. They said they were going to write a constitution within 6 months, and it's been 77 years, and they still haven't written a constitution. So these things are actually not prerequisites for declaring a state and for having other countries recognize you. A declaration of a state and then a recognition of that by other countries is a recognition of aspirations. It's a recognition of reality. There's a lot of states in the world that haven't declared their borders. Israel has never declared their borders. Israel tries to keep expanding its borders. What are Israel's borders today? I'm sure Jake couldn't tell me, because Israel has not declared their borders. In fact, Palestinians draw the whole of historic Palestine when we talk about Palestine, and Israelis draw the same thing because they see the West Bank and Gaza as part of their land as well. So we don't have to talk about, we are setting double standards. We are trying to put things on Palestinians which have never been put on other people. You don't have to declare borders. You don't have to declare a government. It is a way, you don't have to say that, you know, this is our system of government. You don't even have to have a constitution.
Then what functioning
Although Palestinians
state,
do have a constitution and the Israelis don't.
Then what is it? Then how is it a functioning state? Is it other than an aspiration? Is an aspiration enough, or is this, you know?
Yes, of
course. If tomorrow statehood was granted, how would it work?
Well, first of all, I would urge you to go visit Palestine and Ramallah, and you would see that there are many institutions of a state that you might expect to see. You know, different ministries, officials, all these things exist. Now, they're not recognized by the international community because the powers of the international community have waited until Israel signed off on it. Now, that regime is over, right? Now we are in the regime of people recognizing Palestine independently, and it's freaking the Israelis out. They don't know what to do. But I urge you, Harry, please go to Ramallah. You will see that there are institutions set up. There's ministries of education, which I have visited and I have talked to. There's a ministry of state. There's a foreign ministry. All these things exist because since 1993, the idea of Oslo was supposed to be a 5-year agreement, and then we get a state 5 years later. So all of these things were set up. So the truth is, the Palestinians, we have everything to create a state, but we don't have a state yet. We're ready.
Jake,
the truth is, Israel and America and Europe has been stopping it the whole time.
Okay,
now
Jake,
that's changing.
You're freaking out, is the accusation there?
No, I don't feel like I'm freaking out. I've been to Ramallah many times, and you're right, it does have the mechanisms of a state, because those were the agreements under the Oslo Accords, that was supposed to be the beginnings of a state. The Oslo Accords, unfortunately, were derailed by the Second Intifada, which involved 140 suicide bombs on Israeli cities, turning the place into a butcher's shop. That's what prevented the Palestinians from having a state. They once again rejected a state in 2000 at Camp David. President Clinton said only last year that the Palestinians walked away from a state. He couldn't believe it. And he said that you can't complain 25 years later, when you've rejected a state, that the opportunities are no longer there. In 2008, Ehud Olmert also offered them 100% of their demands, a state including both the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, the capital in East Jerusalem, Israeli withdrawal not just from the West Bank and Gaza, but also from the old city. And Mahmoud Abbas didn't take that opportunity. As the phrase goes, the Palestinians never miss an opportunity to miss an opportunity. Why is that? It's because what they want is for a state instead of Israel, not alongside Israel. And the truth remains that if the Palestinians were to lay down their weapons and renounce terror, Mahmoud Abbas, he's now serving the 21st year of his 4-year term, by the way, corrupt and brutal regime that he runs there that pays reward money to anybody convicted of terror. The fact remains, if the Palestinians were to lay down their arms, there would be peace tomorrow. If the Israelis were to lay down their arms, October the 7th would look like a cakewalk.
Is that true? Is that true, Amer? Can a Palestinian state sit aside Israel?
Harry, this is not complicated. In 1993, the Oslo Accords were signed.
Answer the question. Can a Palestinian state sit beside the state of Israel, or as Jake said, it would lead to violence?
No, that's what we agreed. We agreed to 1967 borders in 1993. But this is what happened. Jake likes to start, Jake and other pro-Israel supporters, they like to always change where they start history. The truth is, September 1993, Palestinians and Israelis signed the peace accords. We all saw it on the White House lawn. Yitzhak Rabin and Yasser Arafat shook hands. We Palestinians knew, the whole world knew, that was a better deal for Israel than it was for us. It let Israel keep building settlements in Area C and other places. It didn't really give, but it was a step forward. How did we react? We started to build the institutions to a state. How did Israeli society react? They killed their leader that dared to shake hands with us. In 1995, November, before the Second Intifada, Yitzhak Rabin was assassinated by one of his own. That's how that society reacted to making peace with us. They killed their leader.
And the point on the Intifada, though, Jake's point on the Intifada is valid. Surely.
I'm sorry?
Jake's point on the Intifada, it was greeted with violence. On both sides.
No, but this is the point. Is you keep starting history at different times, right? The Yitzhak Rabin was assassinated before everything fell apart in that period. That's the truth. Yitzhak Rabin was killed by his own people for daring to shake hands with us, and that is what led to a breakdown of a lot of other things in the region. Historians agree on that. Israeli historians, Palestinian historians, they agree on that. You can't just start history whenever you want to. And look, I understand you want to make your points, but it's not working anymore. People are not buying it anymore. They've actually gone and done their research, and they realize that we Palestinians are telling the truth.
Jake, final point from each of you. Jake, do you see anything in the timing of this announcement? The fact is that many Jewish critics of this recognition are right now celebrating their new year and unable to address TV cameras like our own.
It is reprehensible. You know, Keir Starmer has frankly aligned British foreign policy with Hamas. The recognition that he has given the Palestinians, again, I'm not against the Palestinian state, by the way, I should say that, but the way in which it's been done has been celebrated by Hamas with good reason, because it places no demands upon Hamas and only emboldens them in their war against Israel, in their determination to keep the hostages. And the fact that it's been done on the eve of Rosh Hashanah, one of the holiest days of the Jewish New Year, shows a contempt for Jewish people that would never be shown to Muslims or any other minority group in this country. Keir Starmer had the gall to release a video wishing Jews a peaceful new year and a happy new year today. Well, I would like to say to him, you know, you could stick your happy new year wishes where your recognition is currently. This is a bad idea. It's a betrayal, not just of Jews, but of the West as well.
Final thought, Amer, would you be comfortable? Could you live with a Palestinian state that involved Hamas in some capacity?
Well, first of all, it's really rich to talk about holidays, as Palestinians have gone through 2 Ramadans and 2 Christmases with bombs being dropped on their heads and being slaughtered every day in Gaza. Palestinian Christians trying to find refuge in the Holy Family Church in Gaza are being bombarded every day by Israelis. So it's pretty rich to talk about religious holidays when Palestinians have been living under this every day. I would not, I'll tell you right now, I'll be honest, if I was in Palestine and voting in a Palestinian government, and maybe I will be one day, I wouldn't vote for Hamas. I don't agree with that vision of a state. So they wouldn't be the party that I would choose. And I'm sure a lot of other Palestinians wouldn't. The Palestinians who are in power right now in Ramallah are not Hamas. Those are the people that the UK and France and Australia are talking to. So all of these red herrings are just a way to try to explain why we don't deserve the same rights that everybody else does. And the jig is up.
Amer, Jake, thank you very much. Our next guest is Joe Concha, Fox News contributor and author. Joe, welcome.